Hi, welcome to my presentation. My name is Telma and I am the representative of our team. Let me start by saying about my background. I am a working student pursuing the course of Bachelor of Science in Education major in math, and I am currently at my second year. Being a working student is a very challenging role because you have to be good at managing your time. There are instances that I feel discouraged, but giving up is not my option. Instead, I'm taking it on a positive way to move forward. So for all working student and full-time mom over there, here's what I can say. Continue moving forward no matter what it takes because all of these hardships will make you strong and succeed soon. As you can see on the screen, our topic today is discovering empiricism of John Locke in 17th century. Empiricism is the opposite of rationalism and is the idea that all learnings comes from only experience and observations. The term empiricism comes from the Greek word for experience, which is an empiria. The theory of empiricism attempts to explain how human beings acquire knowledge and improve their conceptual understanding of the world. Now, what does empiricism mean in philosophy? Well, in philosophy, empiricism is an epistemological theory that holds that knowledge or justification comes only or primarily from sensory experience. In empiricism, knowledge is also spoken as a posteriori or from the latter meaning gained from experience. Literally, empiricism is based on the experience. So here are the examples of empiricism. Number one, observation, measurements, sensors, hypothesis, experiments, falsifiability, correlation versus causation, data dredging, biases, quantitative fallacy. Now, what are the meaning of this? First is observation. The example for this is a farmer observes the effect of a campaign planting on a field to build evidence. The next one is measurement. This is measuring that uses a particular farming practice that weighs the vegetables where the field is produced in a period of time. Third one is the sensors. The censor often claims that empiricism is based on senses and often based on scientific devices known as sensors that collects data. The fourth one, hypothesis. This is a scientific method calls for a hypothesis to be formed with a rational thought and confirmed with empirical evidence and not the other way around. Fifth, we have here experiment. This is a procedure designed to test a hypothesis with observation and measurement using controls that helps increase the validity and reliability of results. Number six, falsifiability. This means that in order to prove a hypothesis with empirical evidence, it must be falsifiable, which means that it is possible to disprove with an observation. Number seven, correlation versus causation. Now, what does this mean? Correlations are things that show a relationship in data, while causation is where the relationship is more than random such that one thing is causing the other. And number eight, that is the data dredging. The use of automated data analysis to find correlations in data This has a place in discovery and information of the hypothesis. Then, it has to be confirmed with new sets update and rather that is to be confirmed with new sets of data with valid reasons. And number 9, biases. As the reasoning empirical analysis is prone to a large number of biases and fallacies that can invalidate the results. And lastly is a qualitative fallacy. This is a mistaken belief that something must be true because it is supported by numbers. Now let's move on to the importance of empiricism. Empiricism is an important part of the scientific method because theories and hypotheses must be observed and tested to be consistent and accurate. Empiricists tend to be skeptical that anything can be known for a certain, and therefore they tend not to believe in dogmas and absolute truths. Alright, who is the father of empiricism? And does anyone knows? Well, to keep moving, the father of empiricism is Francis Bacon, John Locke, David Hume in 17th century. The most elaborate and influential presentation of empiricism was made by John Locke. That was in 1632 to 1704. This is an early Enlightenment philosopher. In the first two books of Essay Concerning the Human Understanding, 1690, the empiricism of John Locke disagreed with the Descartes' concept of innate ideas. He sought to create a simpler philosophy through the application of Occam's razor that would prove Descartes wrong and put forth his own idea of the tabula rasa. Into continuation, John Locke, tabula rasa means blank slate. Locke believed that we were all born with a mind like a blank slate, containing no innate ideas. He asserts that all of our knowledge comes from an observation, while Occam's razor refers to principles that set forth by William of Ockham, stating that what can be done with fewer is done in vain with more. Essentially, when presented with two theories that are both compatible with observable data, the preferred theory will always be the simpler one. If you have a book, you can look at that in the pages 77 to 78 for example of Occam's razor in history. And who are the other empiricists? First is, aside from John Locke, we have George Berkeley. This is an Irishman, bishop in Church of England. Saw Locke's errors and believed that all that was needed to fix them was a more rigorous application of Occam's razor. He concluded that by taking Locke literally, that is impossible to know something that is not an idea. Next one is Kant. Kant is an empirical realist about the world we experience. We can know objects as they appear to us. He gives a robust defense of science and the study of the natural world from his argument about the mind's role in making nature. We also have Mill. Mill holds that knowledge can be obtained only by empirical observation and by reasoning, which takes place on the ground of such observations. This principle stands at the heart of his radical empiricism. And next is also Hume. Hume holds an empiricist version of the theory because he thinks that everything we believe is ultimately traceable to experience. He begins with an account of perceptions because he believes that any intelligible philosophical question must be asked and answered in those terms. Now let's move on to Karl Popper. He was also a critical of the naive empiricist that we objectively observe the world. Popper argued that all observations is from a point of view, and indeed that all observation is colored by our understanding. The world appears to be, or to us, in the context of theories, and we already hold. It is theory laden. Historically, human mind empiricism was associated with the blank slate, as per John Locke earlier, that's on tabula rasa, according to which the human mind is blank at a birth and develops its thoughts only through experience. Going back to empiricism, that is based on the actual experience. Now, why is empiricism important again in philosophy? As mentioned earlier, it is important in philosophy because empiricism in the philosophy of science emphasizes evidence, especially as discovered in experiments. It is also a fundamental part of the scientific method that all hypotheses and theories must be tested against observations of the natural world rather than resting solely on a priori reasoning or a revelation. And what is another term for empiricism? Here are the terms, that is, context, induction, charlatanry or quakery, a phase or step during which evidence, information, or data is gathered. So, what are the good examples of empiricism? Good example is answer and explanation for this is an example of empiricism in psychology is the study of group behaviors. Psychologists empirically measure how people behave in small groups, such as by administering tasks to a control group and experimental group. And what are the best arguments for empiricism? Yes, the answer is that the central point of empiricism involves gaining knowledge through the senses, rather than through innate ideas. And Berkeley wholeheartedly believes that we too acquire all of our knowledge through sense perception, and this is the only issue involves what the source is of those sense perceptions. Now let's move on to elements of empiricism. Here are the elements. First is empiricism is the theory that the origin of all knowledge is sense experience. Second is it emphasizes the role of experience and evidence, especially sensory perception, in the form or in the formation of ideas. Third one is argues that the only knowledge humans can have is a posteriori. Example is based on experience. Question: can an empiricist believe in God? Well, empiricists rely on their senses and reasons to come to believe or belief. Religious empiricists like Aquinas argue further that belief in God could stem from a posteriori argument, but not from a priori argument. And that's the end of my presentation. I hope you guys have learned something from this presentation. Thank you so much, and everybody have a good day. Again, as mentioned, study hard.